K-Pasa Power Players, welcome to the T-shirt transfer paper Power Half Hour, brought to you by Condé Systems. I am your host, Doug DeWitt. Welcome to the show. Riding shotgun with me as always, working all the buttons and levers is my director, Rodeo Bo. And because this is our 25th episode of the T-shirt transfer paper Power Half Hour, boy, have we got a show lined up for you. We are going to discuss the roadblocks or the hurdles to successful white toner transfer printing. Should be a very informative show, should be an awesome show. Thank you for tuning in. But before we can get started with rolling through that, of course, here at the T-shirt transfer paper Power Half Hour, we have to pay the power bill. And the first thing on the agenda is the Virtual Sublimation Summit 2021, which starts tomorrow. I hope you have your ticket to attend, but if you don't, you could still register today for the Sublimation Summit. We have a banner on our website, dietrans.com. Make sure you click on it. You can get a discount for attending the Virtual Sublimation Summit. There's going to be informative classes, instructional classes, not to mention tremendous deals on systems and products that are only available to attendees. So make sure you get your ticket, make sure you attend, starting tomorrow, Virtual Sublimation Summit 2021. Also wanted to let you know that we are coming up on the end of our Forever FlexSoft flash sale. That sale is going to end, I believe, on the 30th. We do have a banner on our website. Make sure you take advantage of that. You will see the sale price once you throw that box of FlexSoft into your cart. So we have all colors, all sizes on our flash sale. So make sure you take advantage. And if you happen to pile at least $200 or more into that cart, you get free Condé Saver delivery. Some restrictions do apply. Make sure you read the fine print. And of course, we can't pay the power bill without mentioning The Road to Sublimation Success, co-authored by our very own David Gross. And speaking of the Virtual Sublimation Summit, don't just take my word for it on how awesome this book is. This is from Cheryl Kuchik, who is the organizer of the Sublimation Summit. David Gross is known as a leading expert of sublimation, second only to his passion for helping people succeed in learning the process of sublimation. David is affectionately known as the Master Sublivangelist, hope I got that right, one who spreads the love and knowledge of sublimation. If you want to learn the nuts and bolts of sublimation, you need to read this book, The Road to Sublimation Success. You could buy it here at Condé. You could also order it on Amazon or download it on Kindle. And don't forget, we now have an accompanying book, The Sublimation Journal. So you can document all the pit stops on your road to sublimation success. Make sure you get this accompanying bit as well. Again, available through Condé, on Amazon, and download through Kindle. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. What we're going to discuss today is what I consider to be the three major hurdles that all white toner users go through in the beginning, trying to get used to their system, trying to get up and running to where they are printing successfully and profitably. So what I did was I decided to call in the heavyweights on these three topics to give a better overview to you guys for what you need to expect if you are going to get into white toner transfer printing. Now, always tell people the first hurdle you have got to clear is learning how to manipulate your artwork for white toner printing, because it's not like printing for sublimation or setting up for prints for screen printing. There are additional rules that we need to go by. So that's why I called in, the resident master on this topic, which, by the way, also happens to be the author of Artwork for White Toner Transfer, Mr. Dane Clement from Great Dane Graphics. Dane, welcome to the T-shirt transfer paper Power Half Hour.
Hey, Doug, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
We appreciate you taking the time to visit with us today. Basically, what I wanted to talk about is the first hurdle, which is learning how to design and set up your artwork. Because as I mentioned before, we're not dealing with a standard four-color process application like you would use, for instance, with inkjet sublimation. We now have white as a color, and in a lot of these systems, we may not necessarily have that true black. So the first question I have for you is, is it harder designing artwork if you know it's going through a white toner system? Are there certain basic ground rules that you have to follow?
Well, honestly, I don't change when I create my artwork, I don't change the approach necessarily for the decorating technique, right? So, I mean, I do in certain instances, especially screen printing. But the nice thing about white toner transfers is that you're printing a full color design, or you have the capabilities. Obviously, you can print in one color, whatever, but you have the capabilities of printing in full color. So to me, that's where I would focus all the artwork that I create, and to get the most from that equipment, from that machine, right? You want to make sure you can maximize the capabilities of it. So first thing I would consider that. Another thing that I normally stay away from, and I would recommend to, well, before I start any artwork, I would say, if you have a white toner printer, you need a rip, right? Without a rip, you can't do a bunch of things. And some people try to get away without rips. I know some rips come with the printers and things, but you got to have it because it handles the transparency, right? So that's just top shelf right there. But when I create my artwork, my settings are the same. Like if I'm doing it in Photoshop or Affinity Photo or something like that, I create my full color graphics. I make sure in any digital printing, and especially this one, my artwork does not contain large, flat, solid color, right? Like you may with a simple 2-3 color screen print design. You know, if I got a big old fat letters with, 3 letters of a high school name or something, I don't want it to be flat color. I want to add texture to it. I want to have some gradients to it. I want it to have some things going on, because, with these toner printers, you don't always get a real large, smooth, consistent roll, right? Or print off that on that sheet. So those things transfer to the print, to your final print. And if you have some textures and some of that kind of thing going on, it helps camouflage those imperfections if you have any.
Yeah, I appreciate you hitting on the fact of trying to avoid large swaths of color. If there's one color in particular that I try to tell people to avoid, it's using black, large swaths of black in your design. Because when we're dealing with a white toner printer, if you have a 4-color white toner printer, you have cyan, magenta, yellow, and white, which means your printer is mixing cyan, magenta, and yellow to create processed black, which we all know is not the same as true black. From an artistic standpoint, from a design standpoint, how important is it to have that true black as far as the process color? Because at that point, you're kind of looking between two platforms, what is now the 8432 WDT and the 9541 WDT, of course, that 9541 having all 5 process colors.
Yeah, well, obviously, ideally, that's what I would want, because I'm not limited as far as what I create, or it won't change the look. A lot of times when you're printing just a CMY with white, then like you say, and the black is not black, it's more of a brownish sort of black, right? So if you create your artwork and design for either that or a darker blue, I think I've noticed we get away with it pretty easily. But ideally, yeah, if you can swing the black printer, it's a big deal for your final print. They look awesome.
Yeah, I would agree. Now, when it comes to setting up artwork, one of the mistakes that's common out there is people will work in some type of bitmap format, traditionally JPEG, where, on a standard 4-color process system, you can't physically print white, so the background white in a JPEG is ignored. But on a white toner system, you got a logo, it's in a JPEG, you're going to get this white box around your logo. So, I always try to encourage people to work with some type of transparent, file format. In your opinion, what are the best ones as far as working in a transparent file format?
Sure. So typically I work in a Photoshop document, right? A PSD. When I'm creating the artwork, because I can have multiple layers, I can have alpha channels, I can have paths, I can do all the components and elements that I need to create my artwork piece of it. And it can stay in there, right? It will always be in that file. But when I'm printing to white toner, I'm going to save that artwork on a transparent layer and output as a PNG. That's the file format that I recommend, that I use all the time. PNG is a high resolution, high quality file format. it has transparency, right? It recognizes transparency. So it will not keep all your layers and all your alpha channels and that sort of thing. So when you're working in Photoshop, for instance, you would keep that original file and then you would save as a PNG, which is just one artwork layer on transparent pixels. So
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. I know that you had mentioned before the importance of getting a RIP program, and we'll definitely tackle that later in the show. But the one thing that I've noticed about the majority of RIP programs is they work awesome when we are ultimately going on to either a white shirt or a black shirt. RIPs are basically set up to deal with those two colors, manipulate the artwork where it's dropping out in the appropriate places. The catch is when you're trying to go on to purple or gold or red or green or blue. I know that in your book, you kind of touch on being able to work, manipulating artwork where you're setting up to go onto these colors other than black or white. And I was just wondering if you could take a moment to touch on that.
Yeah. So the cool thing about that lesson, thanks for pointing that out, by the way, it's a Photoshop technique, I guess, right? Tricks that we do to create that. So whatever the design that we create, whatever color we're going to print on, we can subtract that color from the image, right? Just like they'll take out the blacks for a black shirt, but we can really control the color. So if we know the exact color that we're working on and we design the artwork using that color, right? It helps to open up the design onto the shirt. Because that's a big part of white toner transfers is it's way, way, way better than like a print cut from a rolling Versacam or something like that, where you're printing on that vinyl and you got to come back with a vector cut line and cut a piece out and smash it on. It's really, really crunchy. White toner is not nearly as bad. It's way better than that, but it still wants to be open, right? The artwork should be designed so it's open throughout. And if it's not for some reason, pulling the shirt color that you're working on out of the image itself can open it up all over the place, especially if you design for it. So ideally, if you're designing for a specific, you should design for a specific color, right? So for us at Great Dane Graphics, we create a full color image that's what we're known for. Our artwork is designed to print on any color shirt. But if you take the technique that I show you in the book, you can pull out those colors for that particular shirt so it opens up throughout the image. It's just, it's definitely what you want to do. You want to make sure that artwork is opened up, and that's one easy, really cool way to do it. Yeah. Aside from laying a whole screen over it, and just knocking out holes all over the whole thing, which is another doable scenario, which we have in the book.
Yeah, what I always try to explain to people is if you're going to get the best result, it's being able to capture the detail of that graphic using the minimal amount of toner possible. If you're able to do that, you're going to get a soft, flexible design. And when it comes to, pulling these colors out, we know that programs like Adobe Illustrator or Photoshop, Corel Draw can do that type of work. But, someone just getting started in the business, those programs, might be a little more, big bite, so to speak, as far as the budget. And, a lot of them are going to subscription based anyway. I wanted to ask you, are there any software packages out there that can do what Corel or Adobe can do for white toner printing that, maybe you can buy as standalone, maybe it's available for free? What's out there?
So there's a lot of stuff out there. There's a bunch of free things out there. I stay away from those. Only two reasons. One is they're usually not to professional level. And two, there's just so many small options out there. I can't keep up with everything, but it's a good point because, right now I'm working on my artwork for a dye sublimation book, and we're actually going to have two this time. We're going to have one done in Adobe Photoshop and the other one done in Affinity Photo. So Affinity Photo, I'm actually doing a class on it at the Sublimation Summit tomorrow, by the way. And it is a extremely powerful program. It is a what for Photoshop for the most part. And it's $50 and it's a one-time payment, not a month. I'm paying $53 per seat for my artist, right? So this is a $50 one-time payment. And it's awesome. blew me away. I mean, that's why I'm doing more classes on it. I'm playing around with it a whole lot more. It's a killer program for $50, and they put it on sale for 50% off a lot, so you can get it for $25. Can't beat it. Can't beat it.
Well, if you ever decide to do a class for white toner systems, please let us know. We'd love to promote. And speaking of promote, here's your chance to promote artwork for white toner transfer by Dane Clement. Why should we buy it?
All right. So you should buy it because if you're new to the business, right, new to the decorating industry even, the book takes you from the very beginning, step-by-step stuff, from super simple, one color type of simple things, all the way to the advanced stuff, like pulling out the individual shirt colors and opening up those designs, right? It'll take you all the stuff that you deal with, that your headaches maybe that you're going to run into on a daily basis. It covers all the art stuff as far as that goes. We don't get into how to smash it down, but there's a section in the front that kind of explains a little bit of all that, like all the different papers and application processes and that sort of thing. We don't get in depth in that. It's an art book. So if you're struggling with artwork, that's where you want to go. We cover it front to back, top to bottom.
Fantastic. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, you know that you could purchase that book through Condé. As a matter of fact, we've got a link in our long description on our YouTube content. So Dane, thank you so much for taking the time to visit with us, talking about clearing the artwork hurdle. I hope we can have you again on a future show.
Anytime, buddy, anytime. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Dane. So we've cleared that first hurdle, right? So we've got a better understanding of how we need to set up our artwork for white toner printing production. Now, what Dane had touched on is the fact that when it comes to these systems, you have to have a RIP program. Now, what used to be the predominant RIP program for these types of systems was made by Forever, what they call their transfer RIP. But the tide is turning, so to speak, in this market, illustrated by the creation of the Creo 8432 and 9541 WDT systems, which does include a RIP program. It is the Digital Factory 10 RIP program. So a slightly different RIP program than what we're used to. So let's go ahead and get up to speed on that by introducing our next guest, the resident expert over at Creo, Mr. Charles Hill. Charles, are you with us?
I am, Doug. Thank you so much for having me on today.
Well, we appreciate you coming in and visiting with the fine folks here at the T-Shirt Transfer Paper Power Half Hour. First question I have for you. Since Creo is going with this Digital Factory 10 transfer RIP, what do you see as the advantages of this RIP program over the existing platform, which was the Forever Transfer RIP?
Well, I think one of the primary changes that you're going to see is just kind of the overall look and feel of the transfer RIP, or of the Digital Factory RIP. If you're looking at it, it's obviously a very Windows-based product. The user interface is all right there, just pretty much at the tip of your fingertips. If you need a command or a shortcut, it's right there. Once you've gone through, the free classes that we offer with it, it really speeds up your workflow. It's very intuitive, and not only that, it's geared for not just the advanced user, but for the beginning user also. So that's probably one of the main differences that you're going to see. You have just a lot of what they call GUI or user interface options. It's just real Windows and real user friendly.
Well, when I try to compare the two RIPs to people, I'll tell people, the Forever Transfer RIP, it's a fillet knife. It does one thing very well.
Right.
Some other things not so much, whereas Digital Factory 10, it's more like a Swiss Army knife. It could do a little bit of everything. So I kind of want you to hit on some of your favorite features. Just to let everyone know, my favorite feature of this RIP is the supersize feature, the fractal program, where we could take a low-res image and we could add resolution to that image so that when we print out, we don't get garbage out. Take a minute to talk about that and some of the other built-in plugins that you see as an advantage.
Sure. So the supersized image is actually, so as a graphic designer myself on some other levels, I was amazed at the power that this has to take the low resolution images, not just make them larger, but it cleans them up really nice. You get really sharp lines. It fills in your color really nice as well, and you get a good solid printable image, which makes not only you happy as a creator, but also makes your customers or your friends and that happy that are getting the products from you. So I'm with you as far as the supersized image plugin goes. One of my other favorite plugins is, Dane really hit the nail on the head earlier when he was talking a little bit about, white toner printers do a great job, with the white and the black, but there's a feature in the Digital Factory software that's called Knock Me Color Out. And you can actually go in. So when you have one of those multicolored images, you can go in and actually subtract specific colors. So you can use that as part of your rasterization process in the image and just really knock down some of the toner that you're using, save on your cost, and just get a fantastic image at the end as well. It's really a great way to control your print, control the hand of your garment. And so that's another one of my favorite features of the program. The Knock Me Blackout option is a really great one also, because sometimes you might want to fine tune the black a little bit. And this software just really allows you to go in there and not just fine tune the black that you're taking out, but it also allows you to adjust your underbase so you can just get that perfect look that you're looking for.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Dane and I were having a discussion about, the types of file formats that you should use. He recommended PNG with a transparent background. I tend to agree. I know that the Forever Rip, you're kind of limited in the type of art files that you can bring or import into that rip. I just want you to kind of touch on the different file formats that you can work in when you're dealing with the Digital Factory 10.
Sure. So the Digital Factory software is really great at handling multiple bitmap files, but Dane was correct. A transparent PNG is probably one of your best options to bring in, because that background is already knocked out for you. You can get a nice clean image. But the software itself supports JPEG files. It supports PDFs, vector art, fully rasterized art. So there are quite a few that you can bring in. Scalable vector files or SVG files as well. TIFF files, there's quite a large array that you can bring into it. And it's really nice that you can bring those in and still make some minor adjustments to what you're needing to do. But the PNG is obviously our most recommended file type to bring in.
Yeah. Well, as far as Digital Factory 10 is concerned, it is a very robust rip. And when you're dealing with very robust rips, they usually command a lot of, let's say, like power or performance out of your PC. So if you're looking to get started in this and you got to go out and essentially shop a new PC to run the rip efficiently, what should you be looking for? I mean, are we going to have to go out and get something like a gamer PC to be able to run this software?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And that's actually one that we're asked a lot during our trainings is, what kind of PC should I get? Or should I get a Mac or something along those lines? So the software being Windows based, the minimum recommendations is an i5 processor, which is an Intel based processor, or any x86 processor is a really good processor for this. So the i5 processor and 8 gigabytes of RAM is usually what's our minimum recommendation. If you really want to, get the most out of it though and speed up your workflow, I would recommend probably about a 16 gigabyte processor and an i7 or above. But the minimums, if you have an older laptop or a PC, you can get by with it. But you're right, it is a very robust program. And so the faster you want it to work, and you're going to want a little more beefiness back there. But to answer your question, there's really no need to run out and spend $2,000 on a gamer PC or anything like that. So yeah, those are pretty much our minimum requirements. AMD processors as well.
Gotcha. Now, I noticed that when you launch Digital Factory 10, it launches an accompanying program called Compass, which I've gathered is basically what I would call like the online tutorial for Digital Factory 10. How much can Compass teach you in regards to getting started with the rip? Does it have everything that you need to basically review and get up and running?
So there's a lot that's involved in Compass. When you open Compass up, and it's basically kind of a self-help tool. And when you type in what you're looking for in there, it's going to give you a lot of different articles and a lot of different options that you're bound to find what you're looking for there. And the nice thing is you're not overloaded with information either. The nice thing about the software is, or the Compass software, is that it is self-help. It's available to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You don't have to wait, on a support call or anything like that. You can actually do a little bit of research yourself, and it's very encompassing as to what the software is capable of doing. Sometimes it even goes a little further. You might be like, wow, that may be something I need to look at a little bit later on. But it's a very comprehensive tool in getting you up and going from start to finish for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, and when we're talking about this, Creo package, that is, of course, the printer, which is still powered by Oki. We're basically still talking about an Oki platform, but now we're also talking about the Digital Factory 10 included, and one other component that comes with the system, and that's what I want you to conclude with, is the Creo Support Tablet. Just give us a quick overview on what the Creo Support Tablet does.
Sure. So the tablet is really just an additional tool. The whole idea behind Creo is a print-to-process solution for our customers and our creators that we support. And the tablet is just one of the many tools that we provided for that. So within the tablet, once you get your printer open, that's where you start. You start with the tablet. You can go to the Get Started tab that's on there, and it walks you through setting your printer up. It walks you through setting up the software. It walks you through, just getting your first print done as well, because it's going to walk you through, again, setting the software up. And then once you open the software up, a lot of it's pretty self-explanatory. One of the other tools that we have with the Creo system is our community knowledge base and our community support. So you can actually, there's a link on the tablet as well that takes you to mycreo.com. And really, I can't encourage our users and our creators enough to register your printer, because there's just going to be a wealth of knowledge that's going to continue to grow there. And the gateway to all that just simply starts with your tablet.
And you had mentioned getting registered, through myCreo. Is that where you're continuing education classes on the RIPs? Is that where you're broadcasting from, is the myCreo site?
Yes. So what we do is on every Tuesdays at 10 o'clock, we offer a free online class where we go through answering any questions, and we go through a basic overview of the Digital Factory software. And you register your printer, then you can register for the classes. And again, Doug, this is part of the Creo experience. It doesn't cost our creators or our users anything at all extra. We offer this as part of the package. But yes, they would just go on there, register for the classes. And again, that's a weekly class. And then starting this month, actually, I'm offering one night class per week. So some of our creators who can't make it to a daytime class, we're actually offering one night class a month. So we make sure that everyone has the ability to learn, and everyone has a chance and the opportunity for success.
Well, night classes definitely work for me. I'm going to go ahead and get signed up myself. Chuck, I appreciate you taking the time going over the latest features and functions with the Digital Factory 10 RIP. We hope to get more information on our website soon to help educate people. But thank you for taking the time, and thank you for appearing on the T-shirt Transfer Paper Power Half Hour.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. So now we've got 2 hurdles down. We've learned how to set up our artwork. We've learned the importance of the RIP and how to function within it. What I always tell people is the third and final hurdle to successful white toner printing is learning how to calibrate your heat press to get consistent results. And when it came to that, oh, Rodeo Bo, I'm so excited, because we got the designated hitter for this one. We got the guy who I believe is the foremost authority on heat presses. He knows more heat press jokes than dad jokes. I've known him since Tom Brady was a pup. Like I said, my resident expert when it comes to heat presses, Mr. Aaron Knight with George Knight Company. Aaron, welcome to the T-shirt Transfer Paper Power Half Hour.
Doug, thank you so much for having me on. And boy, I cannot think of what to say in response to that lead up. Oh my goodness.
Well, that's the perfect response. That's just what we want to hear on this show. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. We've got our transfers produced, and to take advantage of these systems, of course, we're working with what they call self-weeding T-shirt transfer papers. My first question to you, which I think should be a pretty simple question, when it comes to a heat press using these products, do you go clamshell or do you go swing away?
Yeah, it's a great question. And theoretically, clamshell should be just fine. The problem is most clamshell presses in the industry really do come down at an angle. They hit at the back a little earlier, not at the front. And there is an unevenness issue on some clamshells. Not ours, of course, but with the majority. And that can be an issue with ours, is clamshell just is a little bit, it gives too much range of lack of pressure in some areas or others, as opposed to a super uniform pressure that swing away gives. When you have a swing away press, you're coming down like a piston, very, very parallel. You have two parallel plates. So regardless of what the thickness of the product is, you're always hitting very, very evenly, and you can just fine tune that pressure a lot more, with a lot better resolution of contact with a swing away press versus a clamshell, which is great for screen printed transfers and most other more forgiving transfers, but with self-weeding and the white toner, you got to go swing away to really make sure you have super uniform pressure.
Yeah, I would agree, because to me, when it comes to a swing away press, it's just easier to gauge the feel of the pressure, because, when we're talking about pressure, we're talking about kind of an arbitrary thing. It really depends on who's operating that press, what's their definition of light, medium, heavy pressure. But let's say we can dial it in because you have air-operated swing-away presses. Could you use an air-operated press with this procedure and basically dial in the exact pressure that you need to get a consistent result?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Great question. With manual presses, it really is by feel. We have digital pressure gauges with manual presses. We have means of showing you some type of feedback, but with manual presses, it's still manually. You're still clamping it down and you're going by feel primarily. So with the air operated presses, you have a way of really dialing in a very specific PSI. And that PSI is very repeatable, and it's always going to be the same amount of exerted pressure for that machine. Different models, 80 PSI on one model can be a little different actual total applied force than 80 PSI on another model. One model might have a 3,000 pound airbag, one might have a 800 pound cylinder. But the key is repeatability. You can dial in a PSI, get perfect results on that, and know, okay, from now on, I can dial in that specific PSI and get the same exact result. So it is a way of avoiding going by feel, because not everybody is a super pro with 400 years of experience like Dane Clement, who just knows everything and can feel everything in his sleep and get perfect. But with air op presses, it allows you to become Dane in a heat press kind of way.
Well, just to defend Dane, he doesn't have 400 years of experience. He just looks like he has 400 years.
Oh, gosh. We're going to move on.
Yeah, we're
going to move on from there.
Yeah, let's talk about being able to calibrate a heat press, because you had mentioned with your George Knight presses where you have what I'm going to call a pseudo pressure gauge, and other models out there have it too. Just to make sure that everyone knows, there is nothing scientific going on with that. It's not like 2 bars equals 20 PSI, right?
Generally, yes. So the pressure bar graph on our press, which we're very proud of, it's a very cool cosmetic feature that lets you know, hey, you're not really pressing, or hey, you're doing pretty well, or wow, you're maybe overdoing it, and maybe you're going to cancel your subscription to the gym because you're just bench pressing so heavy. But it is a generic type of display, which means 2 doesn't mean 20, 3 doesn't mean 30, 4 doesn't mean 40. It's just letting you know basic feel what you're getting. So when you calibrate, sometimes after shipping or after a lot of use, you need to reset your 0 and 9 points, and then it figures out all the points in between. You can do that, but you just have to understand that that is calibrated to that machine, and that is a relative scale for reference only. But boy, with manual presses, you still want to have a very good feel for whether you're doing a good firm 2-handed pressure or whether you're doing a very light 1-handed pressure. So it's still going to be primarily by feel, even though you can calibrate the pressure bar graph based on the press you're working on.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned, if you're using a press and, you use it for a certain amount of time, you can kind of recalibrate that pressure setting. do we also need to recalibrate the temperature or the temperature setting? Because, some people, when we ask them to test the temperature, they like to use a laser. And, the way I feel about lasers is that they're very inaccurate. What is your preferred tool, so to speak, for measuring platen temperature accurately to make sure that if you've got that press set at 320 and you take that platen temperature, you're in that ballpark?
Doug, my preferred tool is always you. You are the preferred tool for measuring temperature. But I agree with you with lasers. Lasers can be really tough, especially with large format presses or very small hobby presses that don't have a Teflon coating on the heat platen. So when you're shooting with an IR gun, the IR gun cannot see raw aluminum. You have a raw aluminum surface with a very different emissivity value than normal coated materials. You'll be off by 150, 200 degrees. And so we'll have people call in and say, hey, my press is off by 200. We'll say, using a laser, and does your press have a Teflon coating? Now, if it has a black Teflon coating on it, then you're within 20 or 30 degrees, and it's more useful as a tool to know whether you're on or off. But we don't like them because non-contact pyrometers or laser thermometers, the laser guns that you shoot and point, they're going to vary based on the surface only, which can vary based on airflow, if it's clamshell, based on angle that it's at or what it's on top of. So we really like contact pyrometers, a contact pyrometer that you can touch up against the heat platen surface and get an actual reading and get a much better idea of where you are. And then we have a very simple setting in the press, as do all digital controllers, to allow you to set an offset temperature or adjust the offset temperature to allow you to match what you see on the platen surface to what you see on the screen. You have to be able to match what's on the screen to the platen surface, and that's the offset temperature calibration. It's very much available in there. Most of the time, you don't have to touch it almost for the life of the press until either you could change out a control years and years down the road, or if you're in a strange, odd electrical environment that's causing a little interference, maybe you have to adjust your offset. But generally, most of our customers, 90–95%, don't have to touch the offset calibration, but it's good to know it's there. And try not to rely on an IR gun too much with them, especially if they don't have a Teflon coating.
Well, I was going to say, one of the other questions I wanted to pose to you, what I would say are the power requirements for a press. Now, of course, if we have that press indoors and we're, it's a standard 110, 120 volt, we're plugging it in the wall, as long as there isn't any other what I would call power robbing devices on that same circuit, we should be fine that it's getting consistent electricity. But, some people like to take their show on the road. They like to, set up at a fair or set up at a sporting event where, they might be going off a generator power, or they might have a 200-foot extension cord going from their press to where their power source is. Does that have an effect on the performance of the press?
Generally, no. This is one of the great things about the design, at least on our digital controller. It's kind of an industrial control that we fine-tuned over 20 years and improved and refined. Is it'll handle varying cycles, varying hertz, for anything 50 to 60 hertz, anything in between. It doesn't have a clock based in it, but just a more solid timing mechanism to do its timing. So it's not affected by cycles. It is also, because it's a resistance-based heating element, it's not affected by difference in voltage. The ohms of the heater is very specific, so it's going to pull a very specific amount of power based on incoming voltage. So you can give it a wide variety. If you've got really low Japanese 100 volts, Japanese is, instead of 110 or 120, some countries are way down around 100 volts. It'll work fine. It'll pull a little bit higher amperage, but it's going to be very, very robust. Works great with generators. Doesn't care at all about the generator. All we really run into issues with customers sometimes is the 16x20 presses pull about 15 amps. These are not, printers and software. These are heat-making hogs of power. And that 15 amps on a 15 amp breaker means if you turn a couple light switches on, you're going to trip a breaker at 15 amps, and then your wife runs a hairdryer. you're tripping. If you try, and I mean you're tripping the breaker, not you're on drugs. But and if you try and run multiple presses on one outlet, you're probably going to trip them. You know, you could run 3 mug presses because they're very low powered, but with the T-shirt presses, multiple on one circuit, you'll trip the breaker. So the main concern most of the times with customers is amperage. Add up the amps and make sure you're on a 20 amp circuit so you can run your computer and printer and other items, or if you're on a lower 15 amp circuit, be careful. You'll probably, you know, all of a sudden run the microwave to make some ramen noodles while you're pressing T-shirts, and everything goes out, both your T-shirt and your noodles.
Well, I tell you what, the one thing that you and I don't have to worry about is tripping the breaker with a hair dryer.
Yes.
I think
Thank you.
I think we got that problem licked. So one last thing, and you know, this is what I wanted to bring up, is there are a lot of heat presses out there on the open market. Some are quality models, some not so much. Usually the price is a key indicator of, you know, what you are going to get, you know. Last thing I wanted to ask you is just this basic question. When you're considering a press, why should you consider a George Knight heat press above the competition that's out there?
Yeah. There's a famous term going around in the heat press industry and amongst resellers and salespeople that we picked up on, and spreading like wildfire, and that is the term disposable. The key difference between a U.S.-made press like ourselves and a lot of the stuff that comes in on a container from China is there's a lot of disposable presses, and they are priced as such. Very short-term machines for getting your feet wet, great for hobbyists, and not good for long-term. They just can't hold up. So the main thing you're looking for in a heat press is, number one, is there lifetime free tech support? We offer, with all of our warranties, lifetime. You call us, you email us, we solve you, we resolve you, we help you on your way the same day. We're not allowed to go home to our families until we call you back. So lifetime for tech support, as opposed to you are on your own with disposable presses. That's a key thing. A lifetime warranty usually indicates it's a U.S.-made press. That is usually a strong indicator that you have a company and people backing it with really good technology and good quality on a press. One thing you can look at is weight. When you have a 30-pound press of the same size as a 80-pound press, that's a good indicator that someone is skimping somewhere along the lines, and usually it's an overseas import press that's doing that. So there's some obvious things about quality. Most people that call in these days are just saying never again. The cheap stuff is too expensive. The cheap stuff costs too much. It costs me too many jobs. It costs me, this or that. And I bought them 3 times in a row, and I finally given up. So it's more of a never again. And I don't like, Chinese presses. I think they come attached with a pathogen or a deadly virus with them as well. I just don't like them anymore. There's too much that goes wrong across the board with these. So it's been very good for us. We're at 3 times capacity right now in the factory. Just because everybody's defaulting to U.S.-made press that's actually available. That's another buying decision is, right now with the shortages and things, do you have a company that can make them and that they're available within a couple weeks versus a couple months? So that's also a major buying decision for people.
Well, what I always try to relay to people is, if you buy the right heat press, you only have to buy it once. And if you're in the market for a heat press, strongly encourage you to consider a good George Knight heat press, which, by the way, we sell those at Condé too. Aaron, I want to thank you personally for taking the time to be on the T-shirt Transfer Paper Power Half Hour. Please tell Chick and the crew that we say hello, and hopefully we will be on the road again soon. We will be downing some Arnold Palmers, doing lines of sugar just like the old times, man.
Sugar, yes, it's the thing that makes trade shows work, isn't it?
Hey, it's what gets me through a show, I'll tell you that. Aaron, thank you so much for being on the T-shirt Transfer Paper Power Half Hour.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that this discussion today with our 3 industry experts is going to help you get over those hurdles and get you to successful white toner printing. Now, should you have any questions about the content that we discussed today, you could always shoot an email to our inbox, TTPPHH@Condé.com. Yes, definitely. So again, we hope you enjoyed the show. Remember, if you did enjoy the show, like and share so that we could get our viewership up, and the president of the company will sign off on future episodes. Also, all the things that we've discussed today, we've got the in our long description on our YouTube. We've got a lot of these product links, so you can go straight to the source, get some more information on the topics that we covered today. Also wanted to let you know that the T-shirt transfer paper power half hour is going to be taking a slight hiatus. We will be back. It will be on Tuesday, October 26th, where we will have our Halloween special extravaganza, so make sure you tune in. One last thing, Rodeo Bo, I did promise pyrotechnics for Aaron. We're going to empty the clip. Make sure you tune in to the next episode of the T-shirt Transfer Paper Power Half Hour, brought to you by Condé Systems. Until then, I'm Doug DeWitt, Product Manager. My time is up. I thank you for yours.